For a good portion of his adult life, a good friend of mine, Philip Gleason, didn't know what to do. He had the attitude of self-reliance and the determination to truly be prepared, but kept coming up short. Each time he thought he was prepared, things went wrong and his family suffered. 3 quick examples. First, one spring, as a young father, he was hired to do construction in Mountain Home, Idaho, which back then the sidewalks rolled up at 6 o'clock. So he acquired a camping trailer and set it up in a trailer court so his little family could have everything they needed. He had a good job, so he could buy plenty of food and keep the utilities paid up. Then the job was extended into the winter, so he made sure that there was plenty of propane to keep his family warm in their trailer. That Christmas, as they came home to their trailer from the grandparents' house, they discovered that not only was it 0 degrees outside their trailer, but it was 0 degrees inside the trailer too. Their extra propane was used up because of an unusual cold spell. No problem. Being self-reliant, Philip had some extra blankets, one of which was electric. So they put their 3 kids in bed between them, covered up with the electric blanket, the other blankets, and their coats, and soon they were toasty warm until about 3 a.m., when the power to the whole trailer court went out. He said it only took 30 minutes before that 0-degree cold reached his babies and they started crying. So here he was, thinking he was prepared, and now he couldn't keep his babies warm, couldn't give them drink, and couldn't feed them because everything was frozen solid. That next 3 hours of watching his little family suffer rewired his brain. The problem was that until this event, Philip didn't realize how vulnerable his little family was to losing power and not having a backup of food, water, and heat sources. So he concluded that to be prepared, you need lots of supplies. So he set out to accomplish that. Over the next few years, he dug in, worked hard, and gathered up a 2-year supply of food, water, and fuel. He had done it. He had become prepared by getting lots of supplies. Just as he was dozing off to sleep that night, feeling really good now about being prepared, a little voice asked, "What will you do if the crisis lasts 2 weeks longer than your food storage?" He realized that just having a 2-year supply wasn't what preparedness really means. He decided it's more like being able to provide all the family's needs on an ongoing basis, not just temporarily. The problem was that until this event, Philip didn't realize how vulnerable his growing family was to a prolonged crisis where food, water, and power were not readily available. So he concluded that to be prepared, you need a way to provide your own food and water indefinitely. So he set out to accomplish just that. Years later, Philip had saved up enough money and bought 84 acres in a small Utah town. Along with the land, he owned 10% of all the water that flowed through the valley in the river that ran through his property. He also built 15,000 square feet of greenhouses and started growing all sorts of food for his family and enough to sell in the community. Plus, he had all the water he needed. Now he was prepared. And besides that, he was excited that his kids could grow up in a small town where they could learn to work on the farm and enjoy small-town life. Little did he know. Come July, his irrigation water from the river stopped flowing. What? How could that be? He owned 10% of all the water, but the river was still flowing. What's the problem? So he went to visit the town fathers to find out what was up. And you'll never guess what they said. So he had an attorney review his deed. The attorney said that he was right. If there were only 10 drops left in the river, he was supposed to receive one of them. 1 hour after receiving a letter from his attorney explaining all that, the town fathers showed up to his property, and he insisted on receiving what was rightfully his. They had to give in, but they were definitely not happy about it, because it threatened their ability to grow crops as they had always done. Now, these were good people, but under the stress of limited resources, they behaved badly. In fact, even though he had won the argument, they apparently then talked smack about him around the dinner table because their children started abusing Philip's children. And 25 years later, 2 of his kids are still dealing with the results of that abuse. So he discovered that small towns are just small big cities with limited resources, unprepared people, and they are not a safe haven for your family. The problem was that until this event, Philip didn't realize how vulnerable his family was to the abuse of those who themselves are unprepared and living in scarcity. So he concluded that to be prepared, you need some way to insulate yourself from the unprepared. So he started pondering how to accomplish that. So he asked himself, how can I achieve true preparedness and provide for my family's needs while insulating them from the unprepared? Well, then he started wondering if moving up into the mountains, away from everyone else, was the solution. But his wife and his daughters disabused him of that idea pretty quickly. The problem was that until this happened, Philip didn't realize how critical social opportunities were to his family. So he concluded that to truly be prepared, you need to provide for the social needs of mom and the kids. From all these experiences, Philip learned that to truly be prepared, you not only need food storage, but the ability to produce food and water, plus some way to insulate yourself from the unprepared, all while still providing for the social needs of your family. But how? He had a big problem. He wanted to be self-sufficient, provide for the needs of his family, preparing every needful thing so that they could weather any storm. But just having a year's supply wasn't the solution. Moving to a small town where resources were scarce wasn't the solution. And moving up to a mountain hideaway wasn't a solution. So, for years, he was at a loss as what to do. He felt he had no options. Until it dawned on him that if he truly wanted to be self-sufficient and prepared in every needful thing, he shouldn't focus on gathering or producing resources, but needed to focus on surrounding himself with other families who themselves were self-reliant and working to become self-sufficient. Becoming truly self-sufficient requires self-reliant neighbors. That way, if things do go to pot, No one is going to come banging on your door demanding your food. No one's going to abuse your children because they're worried about how they're going to feed their children. In fact, it also occurred to Philip that independent, self-reliant people are much, much more willing to work together and help each other when things get tough. So the question then becomes, how can we surround ourselves with neighbors who are totally self-reliant and striving to become self-sufficient? Well, we could all go to our neighbors and try to persuade them to produce all their own food, energy, and sanitation needs. How would that work out in your neighborhood? How many of your neighbors are determined to achieve self-sufficiency? Our American lifestyle makes that pretty tough. The problem with trying to persuade your neighbors is that only about 0.1% or less even sees the wisdom in being completely self-reliant. So no, converting our neighbors to self-reliance is definitely not the answer. So I pondered that idea a little more. Becoming truly self-sufficient requires self-reliant neighbors. Then it dawned on him. What if we built an entire town made up of only people who are determined to achieve complete self-sufficiency and are willing to help each other achieve that goal? That, he realized, was the solution. Why? Because becoming truly self-sufficient requires self-reliant neighbors. You can't do it alone. After thinking about it some more, it became clear to Philip that creating a community of self-reliant people, all striving to become self-sufficient, satisfies all the requirements that his experiences taught him were needed to become truly prepared. So, building a self-reliance community is exactly what we're doing right now. Philip and I and about 30 others are anxiously engaged in building an entire town for 250 families who are bound and determined to live a self-reliance lifestyle. And we're inviting you tonight to consider participating with us. We call this project Operation Self-Reliance. Come to find out, our idea is not new. This is Granja Porcon, an agricultural cooperative community in Peru. 30 years ago, 3 men went to the Peruvian government and said, hey, if you will give us some land, we promise that we and our families will never come to you for welfare. So they did. The government gave them 10,000 hectares of land. Today, 4,500 people live in this community, and it's a beautiful oasis. And the interesting thing is that 30 years ago, it looked like southern Utah. And what they did to create this oasis in the desert was to plant 2 million trees. It completely changed the environment. It mellowed out the winters and mellowed out the summers. And now you can see it's lush and green. They have their own lumber mill, their own fish hatchery, and they've even developed a department of tourism and much more. They have proven it can be done. And if they can do it, so can we. Now, in the spirit of preparing every needful thing, here are 6 special supporting projects associated with the cooperative community we're building, but independent of it. We'll have an Academy of Self-Reliance campus. We'll be building a K-12 private school. We'll have an assisted living retirement home, a whole health and life coach center, a child rescue and young mother's home, an equine and canine therapy barn. And also, yes, we will have internet service, cell phone service, a gas station, and a grocery store, among many other things. Building a complete town in order to prepare every needful thing is a big undertaking. We get that. We've only been working on this for about 18 months, but I think you'll be impressed with what we've achieved in that short time in applying the principle that if you want to be self-sufficient, you have to surround yourself with self-reliant people. I'll now share with you just a few of our achievements to show that we are really serious about doing this. This was a big achievement. Randon Wilson, the country's most respected attorney specializing in establishing agricultural cooperatives, came out of retirement to be our attorney because he was so impressed with our plan. We also have incorporated the Utah OSR Land Co-op, which will be the umbrella cooperative managing the entire community. We've organized it as a nonprofit under Title III of the Utah Code, all nice and legal. In doing so, we learned that there are some amazing benefits for small agricultural producers who unite in an agricultural co-op. And everyone who ends up living in our self-reliance community and participating in our co-op will be small agricultural producers, producing more food than they need and selling the surplus through the co-op. Next, we found a 1,245-acre ranch and negotiated a lease option contract for it. The property is 3 miles long, is surrounded by public lands, and has over 2,400 acre-feet of water rights. It has 5 producing wells, with room for 250 families to each have their own 2-acre self-reliant homestead, as well as an additional 600 acres for the co-op to use to create jobs and generate revenue for the town. Also, we've refurbished 4 existing wells on the property, bringing them up to full production for a total of 5 operating wells. These wells can produce up to 1,200 gallons of clear, clean water a minute. Tastes great. Another accomplishment. We've had the soil and water both tested and found that they are great for agricultural production and culinary use. We even got permission from the state of Utah to grow a 5-acre test crop of hemp. Although everything went wrong that possibly could, we proved with our crop that the soil and water were definitely excellent for agricultural production. And to plant that 5 acres of hemp, we had to design and build 2 pieces of specialty farm equipment because all the dealers were sold out. One that we built is shown here. And on this, a team of 2 can plant 1,200 plants a day. And now that we've built the equipment, the co-op can eventually employ people to make and sell these tools to other farming operations. And perhaps our biggest achievement, we've created an engine that will empower you to prepare every needful thing to participate as a full member of our self-reliance community. That engine is a 501c3 educational nonprofit designed to help people gracefully transition from a lifestyle of dependencies on the cities for their power, water, food, and sanitation to a country culture of self-reliance and independence, surrounded by like-minded people, and to do it all for as little cost as possible. That engine is the nonprofit Academy of Self-Reliance. Now, I know you're going to have a ton of questions, so here's what you can do to get the answers to all of them. We invite you to get involved, and the easiest way to do that is send an email to moreinfo@academyosr.com. And what will happen is you will receive an automatic reply with a welcome letter and a link to a bunch of resources that I will show in this list below. The next thing you can do is watch the 2 videos at academyosr.com/about. And here's that page, or the middle part of that page. You scroll down and you'll see these 2 videos. And you can just click watch now and watch them. They last about an hour each, if I remember correctly. And these 2 videos will tell you a whole lot more about the path to self-reliance and OSR Green and Utah OSR Land Co-op. Lots of information. The next thing you can do is subscribe to our newsletter at the website. And this is what the homepage looks like. And right here, you see the subscribe button. And the newsletter comes out every week. And what it has in it is a letter from our director, Philip Gleason, and it usually gives an update on the progress we're making on creating the community of self-reliance. It also will have a description of the next webinar that we have. We have webinars every week, which you're welcome to attend and listen to and ask questions. It's free. And you can sign up for that under calendar webinars. All right, the next thing you can do is join our Academy of Self-Reliance Facebook group. And here it is. Here's the address up here. But what's even better is if you have your cell phone handy, you can use the QR code to access it quickly now. You want to apply to join? Right here. And what happens on this page is we post frequently articles that we find online about various preparedness projects and various items that you might want to include in your homestead plan. Whether you end up creating a homestead for our community, or if you find another neighborhood you'd like to create your homestead there, that's great. We just want people to become more self-reliant. And the last way that I'll mention here is that you can join the Path to Self-Reliance. It's a training program. And the way you do that is go to the website and click on the big square that describes the path. And what the path is a set of training modules. And by the time you get through the first 20, if you don't just watch the videos, which is tempting, you actually watch the video and then do the homework assignments. And it's in doing those assignments, by the time you got through the 20th, you will have a complete plan for your transition from your lifestyle in the city to a country culture of self-reliance on your own homestead, whether that's in our community or somewhere else. So you can sign up there for the path. It's $27.50 a month, and you can work through the lessons as fast as you want. And after the 20th is a big long series of webinars that teach you about additional different aspects that you might want to incorporate into your plan. Okay, I'm open for questions. Just type them out below in the comments and we'll answer them. Probably a faster way to get your questions answered is to join our Facebook group. Thank you for your attention.